split because she opposes this takeover?
Yeah, so I would say this. We've seen a weakness of leadership by Basil Zemplis, by Sandra Brewer and the rest of the WA Liberals. They hear a few noisy voices and then they just flip. So I want to be very clear, the WA Liberals are missing in action when it comes to housing. Even in the East Coast in New South Wales, the Liberals there backed in the state government's reforms on this exact proposal, transit-orientated development. Here, they are missing in action. They've joined the NIMBYs. They don't care about how we're going to house people into the future.
Are you hopeful that other councils see this as a bit of a warning sign that if they don't act now and streamline their own internal processes, that they might have ultimate approval handed over to the planning?
Well, look, my message to all local governments is this. Do everything you can to cut and streamline housing approvals. If there's one job that I'm asking local governments to do, that is help us house people. This decision today is about opening up station precincts, loosening the strings, enabling upzoning so that we have the potential to get medium to high density projects.
An 800 metre radius, is there plans that could extend, and why was that selected?
So, look, you have to settle on a radius. We looked at what was a suitable boundary, remembering this is up to 800 metres. So the way the process works is this, that we will now work on a scheme for the station precincts. There will still be consultation with local governments. There still will be consultation with the community, but ultimately the planning rules, the height, the bulk, what we do there will be set by the WA Planning Commission.
Are you expecting legal challenges from these affected councils?
No, this is completely through the law under our Planning Act. It has been done before, for example, at Shenton Park site.
What suburbs are next?
To this, just a continuation of the sprawl?
Well, I think as Perth as a city has to make a decision, and that is we can't go all the way to Geraldton. We still need greenfield sites because we need that for housing supply. But Western Australia has to embrace medium to high density living. It's critical if we want to house future generations. If we want young people to be able to actually live in the suburb they grew up, or we want people to be able to downsize, you need to have medium to high density living. Cities around the world embrace this. They do it well. I genuinely believe that Perth can do it well. The best location for medium to high density is adjacent to a Metronet station, to a train station where people can hop on a train, get to work, get to services. You know, that's the future.
What precincts are next?
Look, I will wait for the advice for the WA Planning Commission. These 10 were selected because of the potential land to be developed, because in many cases there were multiple local governments. I mean, I want to be really clear about this. It just makes sense when you've got a train station that is governed by 2 or 3 local councils that are setting the planning rules, you get conflict and you get inaction.
I guess the WA Planning Commission, as an independent body, do they have the resources that they need to conduct these approval processes correctly?
Yes, we already do, and I do want to remind you, through the reforms that the Deputy Premier introduced and then I backed in, the WA Planning Commission already makes a large number of decisions for significant developments, and we've given additional resources to the department to do those processes.
Did you speak to all of the local governments before making this announcement?
Well, my understanding is that my office did contact CEOs.
And did you hear about any pushback?
No, but look, I'm a realist. I understand that there will be those local governments that will oppose this. But again, I come back to this. We've got a choice. Do we shake things up, cut red tape, make more housing available, or do we just put our head in the sand?
Perth cannot continue to expand forever
like many other great cities like London, so on and so forth, have a thing called green belt, which is basically say you can't develop beyond this. Is that something that perhaps you should be looking at?
Well, look, and
So you can limit the size of a city?
yeah, can I say this? It started under the Deputy Premier. We don't take a punitive approach in terms of setting a particular boundary because there could be consequences for that, but we are certainly facilitating any which way we can medium to high density projects.
When you say consequences, what are they?
Well, because there has to be infrastructure decisions, and also where you actually set the border can have consequences for people's property rights.
WAPC.
Sorry, does that get to a point though where, like, you as Transport Minister at some point have the responsibility to say we're not going past Yanchep or whatever?
Well,
stop trying to go past there?
Well, one of the things as a transport or planning minister is you inherit a series of decisions before you. So you have to look at where land has already been zoned. And so, for example, there was a lot of argument against building a rail line to Yanchep, but there was already zoned land in Yanchep. So you have to look at where land has already been upzoned from rural to urban and make sure we deliver public transport to those areas. But in relation to having a boundary, we've argued against that because it would automatically increase land prices. And so what we're doing is making sure there's a diversity or choice for Western Australians, whether it be greenfields or whether it be apartments or townhouse style living. The reality is we have an enormous potential to do more. We haven't done as much as other states, and there is a huge demand. So when people say that Western Australians don't want to live in these types of product, it's the reason being we haven't produced enough of it. And once we do, and once we continue to do it, there'll be more and more people that want to downsize. In particular, the older community who, as we know, don't want all of the hassle and the costs of backyards. That's not everybody, but we need to give proper housing choice.
Bringing more people into these areas that you're planning to do, particularly on the heritage lines, that's a lot of strain on really what are sort of, you know, very outdated facilities. Do you have plans to upgrade the heritage line between Fremantle and Perth?
Absolutely, we're looking at things like level crossing removals and better connections either side of the rail line. And what will happen, or what normally happens, is through these improvement plans, because they're state government instruments, we have really good coordination with the relevant transport agencies, and we can plan for the future. An integrated plan, and that's what Metronet gave us in a sense, and we've got, as I said, building blocks next to Balladura station, next to a lot of stations around the network. Having that strong integration, and as Minister Carey outlined, in many instances you're dealing with 3 or 4 different councils, or at least 2 councils in most instances. Having that ability to have the integrated planning of both transport and the housing means you can incorporate that. And I know there's a lot of keenness for more spending on infrastructure along this rail line. Having associated housing will allow that to be justified through any business cost, any business case.
So I've just got a question for Minister Carey.
Yeah.
Planning Commission Chair Emma Cole is a former colleague of yours at the City of Vincent. Critics could easily point and say you're giving her more responsibility. Are you concerned of, perceptions of conflict of interest?
No, not at all. The WA Planning Commission is an independent planning authority, unlike other states where the Planning Minister actually has a lot more power, for example, including on individual planning applications. So I'm very confident about the WA Planning Commission, and already Emma Cole and the WAPC have demonstrated high levels of integrity in their decision making. I even note that the new chair with the Commission, in terms of their decision making, is actually getting out into communities so that local residents and stakeholders can have their say directly.
Deputy Premier, just on this coloured sand issue, some states have lists of schools, affected schools. We don't here in WA. Is there a reason for that? And Are we underselling the problem?
Hey, look, my advice is that the Chief Health Officer has provided advice in how we handle this situation in Western Australia, and that there's been direct communication with the affected schools in relation to removing that affected sand from the playground. So it's an approach that's been based on health advice from the Chief Health Officer.
Another issue that apparently you're aware of, floorball, which I'd never heard of, but it's closing apparently. You have concerns about that?
Well, in relation to the facility is owned by the Water Corporation, and the Water Corporation is wanting to use those sheds for its services. My agency is working with the relevant sporting associations through our department to try and assist and find alternative venues. Of course, there is a significant shortage of hard court venues in Western Australia, and we're working to facilitate more through our hard court strategy and many of our election commitments that we gave, which is all about trying to increase the number of indoor sporting facilities. We've got hundreds of millions allocated to that, but of course they'll take a while to build. So we're looking at that situation. We understand their concerns. I understand the Water Corporation did do an initial extension, but happy to continue to work with the associations, because we know these types of sports, they do have a significant following. A lot of people play them, and we want to make sure they have a home.
The protesters today about Matilda Bay, are they just wasting their time? I mean, are you committed to the location of that ferry terminal and nothing is going to move?
Well, we went through an analysis. It was called a multi-criteria analysis, where we assessed the 5 options against many criteria. They included, of course, about accessibility to UWA, but more generally too, issues of water safety, issues of environmental impact. And the other point I would say is that as part of this project, we have to relocate 34 existing moorings, which are currently held by our private boat owners. So there's already 34 moorings in that vicinity. So we've gone through a full assessment to understand what has the least impact and what is the most preferred approach. That was done arm's length from me. I didn't sit there and choose which location arbitrarily. It was done through an independent process. And that independent process, away from any politician, determined that Matilda Bay Central should be the location. Now remember, at the election, we initially proposed Matilda Bay North, which was close to the rowing shed, but through the consultation, through the assessment project, it was found that Matilda Bay North was too close to the rowing shed, and that's why Matilda Bay Central was located.
So they are wasting their time now?
Well, as I said, we went through an independent process. So they're proposing sites which have significant environmental impact, water safety impacts, and also require a very long walk to UWA. So we've gone through an independent process. And the other point I'll make, the fact is we have to relocate 34 private boat moorings, or privately held boat moorings. So currently there's 34 private boat moorings in that area. Now, as I said, no one has come up to me saying we should stop all boat use, but there seems to be a real negative attitude towards a ferry compared to private boats. That's what I'm saying.
You did call it an organised campaign earlier this week in terms of their opposition. I understand they did extend an invitation for you to attend today. Is there any reason why you turned that down?
Well, I'm here and I'm having a birthday lunch with my twins with my mother.
Can I ask you about I know it's a federal issue, but do you have concerns about Japanese concerns about the South Koreans buying into AUKUS, given that the new frigates will be built at Henderson?
Oh, look, all of these issues are determined by the federal authorities. They go through all their risk assessments, so I would stand by any decision made by the federal government.
You would hope, obviously, though, as Deputy Premier, that this would be resolved, because that's an important industry for Henderson.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, there's a lot of work being done by the relevant state and federal agencies. They'll work through all of these issues and make sure we get the best outcome for WA.
The Prime Minister's in town next week. Can you talk about his visit?
Yeah, so he's coming to Bunbury, which is great, and he'll be, I think, really looking at energy transition and, of course, AUKUS too. So there's going to be a lot of good visits and around the southwest, and I'm hoping to catch up, for example, with the Federal Finance Minister to talk about all the significant issues or financial issues for the state, in particular West Port and AUKUS.
There's reports of a swanky dinner. Do you have any update on the price tag per head on that? Or?
I didn't get an invite. So, yeah, sorry, I didn't know because I'm not invited. Well, we know we've got an enormous challenge in front of us, and that is supporting new energy products, new energy, to support the massive diversification that we're undertaking in our economy. We've got that challenge both in the northwest and the southwest, and we're taking a very balanced and measured approach. And I think everyone that understands our regulatory system know that we very much understand the importance of Aboriginal heritage and the environment. I know we've got the balance right. And WA, I think, is a very, very strong regulatory state, and one that is balancing all of the environmental and Aboriginal cultural matters with the need to continue to support new energy products, a transformation or transition to clean energy. We've got that balance right. I'll just say WA has got the balance right. We've got a very strong regulatory system. We have always made sure that we've got the balance in relation to development and environmental protection right. It's a balance that many other countries around the world haven't got right, but WA has, and I think we need to continue to get that balance right into the future.
There was a police pursuit that ended yesterday afternoon just across the road. We've had someone write in basically detailing their experience in close calls, saying they feared for their life, and that police pursuits at such a high speed shouldn't happen in high density areas. Do you have any thoughts on? Yeah, look, these are split-second decisions made as police are out there on the roads trying to protect the community. I could understand the fear and that person would have experienced, but I'll leave those sort of matters on operational issues to the Police Commissioner. They said that an allegedly stolen car isn't worth putting other lives at risk. Do you agree? Again, these are matters made by the police out there on the beat, on the streets. They're split-second decisions they make. They're trained to form judgments on that matter, but in relation to that particular incident, I would have to refer that to the Commissioner. And one from a colleague at WA today, they've had confirmation this morning that Kimberley Aboriginal tourism pioneer Sam Lovell has passed away. Oh, okay. No, I wasn't aware, but my deep condolences to the entire family.